And welcome back. We continue to keep an eye on the housing market for you. Taking a look at the last month's numbers, nationwide home sales slipped about 5%, with the median price jumping to a record high. Locally, sales were down almost 24%. Homes on the market about 53 days. The interest rate right now is at 6.8%. But there are some changes home buyers and sellers should be aware of. Eddie Campos with RE/MAX Preferred Associates and president of Northwest Ohio Realtors with us this afternoon to break them down. Welcome. Always good to have you come in there.
Yeah, thanks.
You were here about, what, a month, 6 weeks ago, and I was off that day. I didn't get to touch base with you, but I always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, it's always great.
So there's a change in a law. A lawsuit has changed how things go.
Yeah.
This was in Missouri?
Correct. There was a lawsuit called Sitzer-Burnett in Missouri where a seller had decided that he didn't like the fact that a seller would traditionally pay a commission to the listing agent, and the listing agent would share that commission with the buyer's agent. He thought that he, in fact, was also paying for the buyer's agent. Didn't like that. He didn't complain when he bought his home and didn't have to pay for representation.
I always thought that, I just assumed I'm the seller, I pay for my real estate agent, and the buyer has a real estate agent too, and we pay our own, but that was never the case.
Yeah, so and that's how it traditionally had worked in the past, and it worked well for almost 40 years because buyers are the ones coming to the table with the bag of money. They have closing costs, down payment, inspection, appraisal. If the seller was paying the commission to the listing agent and that was being shared with the buyer's agent, it was one less cost the buyer had to endure. So that's where the change started. So the two changes that are happening is a buyer's agent can be paid several ways, but the one that's going to be most impactful to a buyer is the buyer could, and I emphasize could, be paying for their own buyer's agent moving forward. So again, there are several ways that a buyer's agent could be paid for with cooperation with the seller, the listing agent. There's several ways it could be done, but it is possible that could add to the expense for a buyer. The other thing that's changing is that buyer is going to need to be in a buyer agency agreement with their agent. So when you list your home, you go into an agreement with your listing agent. Now a buyer's also going to have an agreement with their buyer's agent that's effective probably within the next 30 to 45 days. House Bill 466 just made that possible. So what will happen is that agency agreement has to be signed before a buyer can enter a home. In addition, it's going to outline how that buyer agent gets paid, and it's going to outline the duration of that contract period between those two. So it could be for just one home, it could be for 6 months, it could be for 4 weeks. It all just depends on how the buyer and the buyer agent put together that agreement.
Okay, that brings a question, like the house my wife and I have had since '05.
Yeah.
We had sold our home and we were looking to buy something, and she saw something in the paper. This is before internet. Back it was in the paper, and we drove out there. There was an open house. We looked at the house, loved the house, talked to the realtor there selling the house, got some information, said, we love this place. And we didn't really have a real estate agent, so now you'd have to actually have a real estate agent and have to sign with them so that this process could begin?
Correct. So today a buyer would traditionally use a buyer's agent, but back when you're talking about, the listing agent was representing the seller. You, in fact, had no representation. So the listing agent had some care that he had to obviously give you, but they were working in favor of the seller, not you.
True.
Today, you would have your own representation, which in a challenging market the way it is with escalation clauses and appraisal gap addendums and trying to read the tea leaves when it comes to figuring out what's going on with a home and multiple offers, it's essential to have somebody to help be an advocate for you to get through that process.
So that makes a lot of sense. So it's going to change the way you do business a little bit? Is it a monumental change or just strictly like new guidelines?
Well, it is somewhat of a monumental change, but it's something that can definitely be worked on between the buyer and their buyer's agent, because it's still possible that a seller could help with the compensation of a buyer's agent. It's possible that a seller could say, I'm not going to pay for the buyer's agent at all, and that's when it would lie on the buyer's lap.
Sure.
And there could be a combination of ways that could help make that process a little bit easier financially for the buyer. But when it comes down to it, this change is relatively significant, but it can be managed. You know, we've spent the last 6 months trying to figure out what is going to be the best way to get through this challenging time. So that way buyers are going to feel comfortable with the process, and sellers will be feeling comfortable with the process.
We got to get the market moving again. Is that going to take another lowering of interest rates, which may happen in September? 6.8 right now. Historically, looking back years ago when you and I were first buying houses, it was pretty high. How is it now? We got about 30 seconds left.
Yeah, so about 6.8%. And yes, going into the fall, they're talking about interest rates being reduced in September, and again, maybe once or twice more before the end of the year. That's definitely going to help with the movement of homes.
Eddie, always good to talk with you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Dan.
Eddie Campos, this guy has forgotten more than I'll never know about real estate. Thanks so much.